I just had a scary run-in with a black bear in Colorado. I was camping, so I went outside to relieve myself, not far from my campsite, when a black bear approached me, about 40 yards away or so. For about 5 to 10 minutes, the bear started slowly approaching me, backing up, and then dashing quickly forward a little bit more. I stood my ground, made sure not to make eye contact with the bear, and didn't make any threatening movements. The bear got about 5 yards from me when I guess it finally decided that I wasn't a threat anymore and moved away from me. I'm not sure if I should have done anything differently. We had all our food and toiletries in a bear bag, hanging in a tree about 10 feet from the ground. Our backpacks and bear bag were also far away from our tent.
Jeez. What's up, guys? Iceman here.
So these are a few stories that I found on Reddit about bear attacks and those who survived, regarding some rather intimidating bear encounters, and possibly worse. But before I get into the other ones, I'd like to thank you guys for all your support on this channel. So if you will, like the video and subscribe to the page. And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified next time I post a video. And if you want to support me further, you can become a channel member or a patron. Links in the description below. So let's check out another one of these bear encounters, shall we? I was camping in the Oregon coastal area over the last few nights. And then, just last evening, I hiked down a quiet, lush ravine for about 50 feet. A small stream and many big green plants and trees. A very lush environment. I stood on the bank, taking it all in, when I heard something noisy moving through the bushes and sticks breaking. Rather slowly, it got closer and closer. I suddenly remembered that I had been told that black bears are seen around this area. So I moved back about 5 feet behind a huge oak tree. At this point, I was about 15 to 20 feet away from the bear, and peering from behind the tree, I saw it. My escape route was a steep hill behind me, through some bushes, to an Airbnb property with a house and yurt. But I remembered that bears run uphill faster than down. At this point, this massive 1,000-pound black bear stopped and was staring at me, and I didn't dare move for several minutes as my heart was beating through my chest harder than I could ever imagine. He stood there directly in front of me, about 15 to 20 feet, and it was absolute torture for me. He then moved a few steps, maybe 5 feet or more downstream, stopped and looked towards me for another 5 minutes. I froze in fear and thought I would be slaughtered if he decided to come at me. I debated running away. I then decided I would turn and run uphill after he turned his head and started walking again. So I did. I ran uphill and could hear him begin running through bushes. But I made it up and looked back, and I didn't see him. He didn't chase me. I made it out alive. But from that moment, my life was changed forever. I had very little sleep that night, and the owners of the Airbnb let me sleep in their house. I loved seeing the massive bear and slightly connecting with him. I was lucky to witness such a humongous and wild creature, but I read online about black bears being predatory at times and killing several campers in other states. At this point, I might be done camping forever, unless I carry a boomstick or am at a proper campground.
Jeez, crazy.
Yeah, this guy was in a rather unusual situation, and that's interesting that it was on an Airbnb property. But sometimes we might demonize the bears too much. Like, who's really to say that this one was actually after him? But I could imagine it was a hair-standing situation nonetheless. It seems like for the most part, he acted okay, except for how he took off and ran, which should be a telling point that apparently the bear wasn't stalking him, because if it was, I would have expected it to chase him at that point. Because as we all know, turning and running from a bear is rarely a good idea, if ever. Now, this next story is a bit longer, so let's check this one out. It seems rather chilling, if you will. Hiking in what is considered one of the most remote regions in the US, and was easily a 3-day hike from the nearest paved road. And who the F knows how far the nearest town was. So I'm with my younger brother and his friend, and we're almost at the top of this ridge around midday. It's gently slopping into abyss on the left-hand side and steep drop-off on the right. There is a patch of about 10 trees and some bushes up ahead, and 30 feet in front of me is the very peak. It was all downhill for the rest of the day. It's windy, so I can't hear anything, and apparently the bear couldn't smell us, 'cause I walked right up to her, and neither of us knew it. Yes, her. If you know anything about grizzlies, you know there are 2 types of bears you don't want to mess with: a mother and a teenage bear, or a bear just hitting adulthood. Well, I happened to walk right up to a mother and her 2 cubs, who were resting or eating or doing something in the bushes. I didn't see her, she didn't smell me, and I walked right on past her. That's when time slowed down to 2,000 frames per second, or so it seemed. I'm in the lead with my brother's friend, and my brother is about 30 feet back. I start to hear a gallop, and then I feel the ground shaking. I'm not kidding or exaggerating, and my brother's friend would back me up on this. We could feel the ground shake. My reaction was, what the hell are horses doing up on this ridge? My second reaction was, oh God, that's gotta be a bison, because I could feel the ground shaking, and that all took place in the first second, whereas the second to follow, I could hear my brother yell, "Bear!" And the third second was spent curiously pondering the last thought. Bear? What the hell is that supposed to mean? By second 3.5 of the attack, I had managed to turn around and catch a glimpse of a mother grizzly and her 2 cubs charging straight at me. The idea that time slows down is real. Time doesn't really slow down, but your brain starts processing lots of thoughts very quickly. And I'm talking lots of thoughts. So it seems like you've been sitting there thinking about this moment forever. By the time I was halfway turned around and had seen her, she was about 10 feet from me, running at full speed. And it was beautiful. That was my next thought. As she charged, you could see the fat on her back flow like waves. And as it flowed, the hair turned different colors, from dark brown to golden blonde. That is to say, it caught the light differently as it flowed. So I'm standing there thinking, God, that's effing beautiful. And I noticed the 2 cubs, who are about the most adorable thing you could ever possibly imagine. And now it's second 4 of the attack, and the bear is reaching down like a lacrosse player, scooping up a ball mid-charge. And it takes an enormous scoop of the dirt with it and takes a full swing at me, missing my body by about 3 feet. From what I found out later, these were bluff charges, and she was not trying to hit me, theoretically. So I stood my ground and let the dirt hit me in the face as she ran up past me, up the hill a ways, and then back down towards me. So now it's second 5, and the initial shock has worn off, and I'm analyzing the situation. I love grizzlies, and I've learned a lot about them prior to this trip. I know that we are now in the least survivable situation with a grizzly mother and her cubs, but I know my options. I can hit the ground, and it will maul at me until it either thinks I'm dead or it has actually killed me. I can run, where it will kill me, or I can stand my ground and scare the bear. This is actually not a great thing to do with a grizzly mother, but I figured it was my best option. So as the bear turns around and heads back from me, I take a step towards it this time. It makes another swing and misses me by about 5 feet. And I think, hell yes, it worked. Until I realize it was actually running straight at my kid brother this time, 30 feet behind me, and all by himself. And that's when my brain really jumps into overdrive. The first thing I think is, he's gonna die. and I'm going to have to explain that to my mom. Not my proudest thought. Kind of selfish. But at least my second thought was, oh good, if he dies, I'm going to die too, actually. So Mom won't be so pissed at me. Then I yelled out some commands. Stand still! And we're going to move closer to you. So me and my bro's friend start walking straight towards the bear and my brother. We only got about 10 feet before this whole event ended though, because by the time we started moving, the bear had already swiped at my brother, missed him, and was now standing right in front of my kid brother, who had some sort of karate pose going on when the bear angled at him that we teased him about later. It was roaring right in his face. I'm talking like 4 feet from him, and he's just standing there with his fists out, like he's gonna deck this bear. It's getting agitated and running in small circles, and then back again at my brother, then jumps upon its hind legs and stands, towering over him. That's when my genius brother, who after all was the one who talked me into taking bear mace on the trip, despite my complaints about the extra weight, whipped it out of its holster and shot it with a steady stream of pepper spray right in its open, roaring mouth. It immediately lost balance and fell over onto its cubs, who scattered. It rolled for a second, then sat up with the most WTF face ever and looked straight at my brother. So there we were, 3 humans and 3 bears, all just sitting or standing quietly with WTF faces, when the grizzly mother all of a sudden decided to take off down the steep side of the hill with her 2 cubs right behind her. At first, we were afraid she'd die from the fall, so we went on to the edge and looked down, but we couldn't find her, though we did see a big streak of dirt, and as far as I can tell, it ran off just fine. We had planned on returning on the road in 3 days, but after that little romp, we decided to hightail it as fast as we could. We covered 2 days hiking in the rest of that afternoon, and finished the hike the next day. The whole time, my brother was all messed up from the bear mace, as a lot of the blowback returned to him and got him in the face. Jeez, what a crazy story. You know, I would bet those kids were just moments from death. I almost speculate if maybe the mother decided not to attack because there were 3 humans there after all, and she might have known it was still kind of risky, so she was hesitant to actually attack. And it's actually impressive that the pepper spray worked, because I've heard of some scenarios where if you use pepper spray against a mother bear, it might not actually work, because mother bears are so determined to protect their cubs that in some instances, even something like pepper spray might not stop them. But I'm so pleased to read from this post that it actually did work. What an exhilarating thing that must have been for those kids. But damn, what do you guys think about these encounters? And I wonder what would have happened if the kid didn't have pepper spray on him. How would that situation have ended? Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on these matters, and stay tuned to this channel for more chilling tales from the Iceman.